On November 15, 1966, two young couples reported to the police that they had witnessed a large creature with glowing red eyes standing at the side of the road near the TNT area, an old former World War II munitions plant at Point Pleasant, West Virginia. One of the witnesses described the entity as a tall, slender, muscular man standing at about 7 feet in height, with white wings. While driving away in their car, they claimed that the man flew after them, emitting a loud screeching sound. Over the next few days, more sightings occurred, marking the beginnings of the Mothman phenomenon. This phenomenon eventually culminated in a terrible disaster, the Silver Bridge collapse on December 15, 1967, when the phenomenon abruptly ceased. The Mothman phenomenon is well known, yet hidden within this narrative is the less-known sighting of another enigmatic figure, Indrid Cold, also known as the Grinning or Smiling Man because of his large and unsettling grin, which is constantly pasted onto his face. Only a few incidents involving the Smiling Man have been documented, but 4 sets of witnesses claim to have seen him. The first incident took place on October 16, 1966, a month before the first Mothman sightings. 2 young boys, named Martin Munev and James Yankitis, were walking home on 4th Street in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They reached a corner opposite a local landmark called the Turnpike, an elevated area with a high wire fence and a steep incline. There, they encountered the strangest man they had ever seen. This tall, strange man, dressed in a metallic-like suit, had no hair, ears, or nose. He gazed at them with unnaturally intense, inhuman beady eyes, all while sporting a hauntingly wide grin. Overwhelmed by fear, the boys fled while the idiosyncratic man chased them. Just a few weeks later, on November 2, 1966, around 7:25 p.m. on a dark and rainy night, a salesman named Woodrow Derenberger was driving his truck on Interstate 77 near the interchange of Route 47 in Parkersburg, West Virginia. He heard a crash and was overtaken by an unidentified flying object. This object was dark gray to black in color, resembling charcoal and glistening in his headlights. It had no visible lights or windows and hovered about 8 to 10 inches above the ground, resembling an old-fashioned kerosene lamp. Derenberger saw a man emerging from the vehicle, who approached the window of his truck. The man appeared quite ordinary, about 6 feet tall, around 35 years old, with tan skin, dark brown hair slicked back, and dressed in a metallic suit under a dark overcoat. The main distinguishing feature was his penetrating grin. Instead of speaking, he communicated telepathically with Derenberger, urging him to roll down his window for a conversation. The man reassured Derenberger that he had no ill intentions, expressed an interest in learning about our planet, and emphasized their shared qualities with humans, like eating, breathing, sleeping, and even bleeding. He also referred to himself as a searcher, but never mentioned what he was searching for. After their brief interaction, Cold returned to his craft, vowing, "We will see you again." Subsequently, Derenberger claimed to have numerous visits from Cold, some of which were corroborated by his wife and children. During these encounters, Derenberger would disappear for days or weeks without any explanation. While he could sometimes explain his whereabouts, on other occasions, he had no recollection of his absence. On one occasion, Cold even took him aboard his spaceship, transporting him to his home planet, Lunalos, situated in the Ganymede star cluster, where he stayed for 6 months. On Lunalos, the inhabitants wore no clothing, and Cold disclosed that his people had resided on the planet for 125 to 175 Earth years. In addition to Cold, Derenberger reported there were 2 other grinning men like Cold who went by the names of Demo Hassan and Karl Ardo. Perhaps because of these strange experiences, Derenberger's life took a dark turn. He turned to drinking and teetered on the edge of a nervous breakdown. He endured a divorce, harassment, job loss, severed friendships, trespassing, ridicule, embarrassment, and depression. He felt constantly watched and believed his phone was tapped. His writings mysteriously vanished from his locked home, and letters he sent never reached their destinations. In later years, he seemed to make peace with his past, and the encounters with Indrid Cold became less frequent. Nevertheless, his daughter, Tanya Derenberger, claimed to have seen Indrid Cold at her father's funeral in 1990, and he had aged since their last meeting. The third sighting took place on the same night on the same road as Derenberger's encounter when two other men saw an elongated object land in front of their vehicle. They observed a man wearing a dark coat who asked both men questions that seemed pointless before the man returned to the craft, which then took off. The fourth and final sighting involved the Lilly family in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, around the same time. They had been experiencing poltergeist activity in their home and had seen diamond-shaped lights in the skies above their house. One night, their youngest daughter, Linda, awoke to find a man with a large grin standing over her. The man vanished when she screamed and hid under the covers. Intriguingly, the late American investigator John Keel, known for his research on the Mothman, received phone calls from Indrid Cold during his investigations. In their final conversation, Indrid Cold warned Keel of an impending disaster. Shortly after, the Silver Bridge collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. Similar to the Mothman, after the Silver Bridge collapse in 1967, Indrid Cold seemed to have disappeared, but he became part of an urban legend. In 2012, a Reddit post titled "The Smiling Man" gained significant attention. The author, known as Blue_Title, shared a chilling encounter with a man who resembled Indrid Cold. During a late-night walk, the author noticed the man performing a strange dance. As the man approached, his wide smile became increasingly sinister. The author managed to escape but was left with haunting nightmares. Who is Indrid Cold? Was he an extraterrestrial being, as he claimed, from the planet Lanulos? Was he a demonic entity, capable of appearing and disappearing at will, as seen in the Lilly family incidents? How is he related to the Mothman, since witnesses have claimed to have encountered both in close proximity and within a similar timeframe? Could he be a figment of collective imagination, a manifestation of the fears and uncertainties of the time? Let me know in the comments below.